I'm Councilwoman Stark, and I asked for this morning meeting. We're doing a series of meetings, but I thought we need to break it up and have some in the morning, some in the evening, so that we're getting out and speaking to as many people as we can. This is about our proposed trash and recycling rate options. We haven't decided on anything, but one of the things council wanted to do was to get out and talk to the public, the people who use our services, to get opinions. But we also want to educate you as to why we're here. Because there are a lot of factors that have happened over the last few years. Probably most importantly, China. We used to send a lot of our recycling to China, and they're no longer accepting it. So we have to look at different options. So I'd like to introduce Ginger Spencer. She's the Public Works Director. She's been working on this for quite a while. This isn't an overnight process. You guys have been working on it for several years. They're going to give a presentation, then we'll be happy to answer any questions. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Councilwoman Stark, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. For the presentation, I will stand up to give that presentation. I'd also like to do a few more introductions as well. So to my left, we have Joe Jadis. He's the Assistant Public Works Director over our solid waste area, and he comes with over 20 years of experience with the city as well. We have all of our staff that are located to the left as well. So if you don't mind, could you give them a hand? They've put a lot of hard work and effort into this information and the information you're going to hear today. We also have Jeff Barton here. He is our Budget and Research Director, so I want to acknowledge him. And we also have staff. Thank you, Jeff. We have staff from our finance department as well. So this is a huge effort, and it's a joint collaboration. I am looking for the clicker. There it is. Okay. I'd also like to acknowledge, she just stepped in the room, but Karen Peters, she's our Deputy City Manager. So thank you, Karen, as well for being here this morning. All right. So again, Councilman, thank you for hosting us this morning and for this opportunity to speak with you, our residents, about our solid waste fee. So I'm going to go through a few slides here. And what I'm going to do is actually just stand off to the side so that you can hear me, right? But I'm not looking over my shoulder and then taking away from the mic. So who are we? We are the Phoenix Public Works Department. We are the 4th largest department in the city. We've been around since 1915, picking up garbage since that time. We've actually been in the recycling business for the last 30 years. But we are 600 men and women. We're garbage truck drivers, we're solid waste workers, we're education specialists, we're enforcement specialists as well. And so we have 600 men and women who make up the Public Works Department. We also have 433 trucks that we utilize to pick up your garbage and recycling each and every week. We have 2 transfer stations that we operate out of. So we have one in the North Valley off of I-17 and Dexaletta Road. And then we also have another one located in South Phoenix off of 27th Avenue and Lower Buckeye. We have 5 closed landfills. And then we have 1 open landfill that is located 60 miles from downtown Phoenix, which is located in the city of Buckeye. So if you live in Phoenix, you're familiar with not in my backyard, NIMBY issues. So as you can tell, it's very hard when you go to site a landfill. And so the last time we did this, that's where it was at. And at the time, Buckeye was still a town, and now it's the city of Buckeye. So we're grateful for that partnership with the city. Okay, so what do? We are in your neighborhoods each and every week picking up your garbage and recycling. We offer bulk trash collection of your big and bulky items. Those are things that are too big to fit into your garbage bin. We do that 4 times a year. You also get 1 free dump at our transfer stations once a month. And we hold 9 household hazardous waste events throughout the year. That is for items such as paint, computers, other things that just don't belong in your garbage or recycling container. And then we process your recyclables. And we do all of this for $26.80. That is the monthly rate that we charge our residents, and that rate of $26.80 has remained the same for the last 10 years. So why do we do what we do? Well, we want to be good stewards of our environment, and we are mandated to actually collect garbage and recycling. And then we have a local initiative called Reimagine Phoenix, which is our goal to divert 40% of our waste from the landfill by the year 2020. So we are currently at a 36% diversion rate. We've exceeded the national average of 34%, and we've done this all on a voluntary basis. And so you, our residents, should give yourselves a hand. You should be very proud of that 36% diversion rate. I'd like to point out, though, that this is a very ambitious goal, and so we have till December 31st of 2020, and I like to say 11:59 p.m. to achieve that goal. So we're working hard to get there. But it's all about reducing, reusing, and repurposing our waste. So we wanted to show you a little bit of our history of our solid waste fee. As you can see, since 1990, there was an increase in the rate year over year. Then from 1992 to about 1998, it was held steady. And then we had to increase again. And then from 1998 all the way to 2008, you see there was an increase year over year. And then at 2008, that was the last time, actually 2009, that we received a rate increase in the city of Phoenix for our solid waste services. If you would apply inflation over this same time period, our rate of $26.80 would actually be $32.07 today. So we always get the question, well, how do we compare to other valley cities? So as you can see, Phoenix is the second to the highest solid waste rate right now in the valley. Mesa is at $30.18. And then Chandler is at $16.93. What I'd like to point out is, if you look at Mesa, they have about 500,000 is their population, compared to us, Phoenix, at 1.6 million people. They also have 133 square miles that they're covering, compared to 518 square miles for Phoenix. When we talk about that 2680, that includes the collection of bulk trash. If you live in Mesa, you actually would be charged on top of the $30.18 for bulk trash service. Okay, so that's an additional fee. I'd also like to point out to Chandler, if you look at their rate again, $16.93. They have a population of 262,000. Okay, and then they're covering 65 square miles. So again, we are covering 518 square miles. That's our trucks in your neighborhoods each and every week, covering the entire valley, right? So there's a cost to that service. When you compare Phoenix, though, to like-sized cities, okay, we have Austin at 298 square miles, Los Angeles 468 square miles, San Antonio 460, and Dallas 340 square miles. Phoenix is actually the lowest amongst the monthly residential fee, okay? So you have Austin at $51.80, and you have Phoenix at $26.80. So we've done everything we can to keep the cost down as low as possible. Okay, we mentioned our population. We are a growing city. We are the second fastest growing city in the nation. So what does that mean? More people, more trash. We currently, at our current population, send 1 million tons of trash to the landfill each and every year. That is enough to fill Chase Field 7 times top to bottom, okay? And so we have some operational challenges that we've been dealing with. One, we need to repair and maintain our fleet, that 433 trucks that I mentioned. We own those trucks. And we should be replacing them every 7 years. So we've needed, as our councilman stated earlier, we've needed a rate increase for some time. We've tried to keep it low as possible. but those trucks are coming due, okay? And in 1 year, we actually only replaced 5 trucks. We should be replacing 28 trucks every year. That's just normal replacement. And we should be adding probably 2 trucks each year for growth. And we have a lot of growth in the northern part of town and a lot of growth out in the southwest as well. We need to invest in our capital infrastructure. Those transfer stations that I mentioned, we also have 2 MRFs. Our facilities that our garbage truck drivers work out of, we need to maintain our capital infrastructure that the city owns, and then respond to population growth. So, recycling, the councilman mentioned this as well. You may have heard about the impact to recycling. Nearly 80% of our recyclables were sent to China in the past. And about a year ago, they came forward with the China Sword, which is basically saying that they no longer wanted recyclables from the US and across the world. And then if we did send our recyclables to China, that there would be a 0.5 contamination rate. That's basically a 0 contamination rate. And so that has presented other challenges. And so what I want to say is, part of why we were able to go 10 years without a rate increase was that the revenue that we brought in from our recycling, it helps subsidize the monthly residential fee. So you can see here on the screen, in our heyday when recycling was the revenue was at its highest, we brought in $12 million annually, okay? That $12 million, though, I want to mention, only represented about 4 to 6% of our revenue. So the majority of our revenue comes from the monthly residential fee. You can see, though, over time, it dropped from 12 million to 9 million to 6 million. We are currently projecting solid waste revenue, recycling revenue, to be at 3 million this year. You'll see on the chart, though, we've taken it to 0, because as a nation, as a state, as a city, we have never been here before, so we don't know if we've hit bottom, right? So we projected at 0. But if we bring in any revenue, then that will help us offset our savings. So we've done a lot to keep this rate down. We've come up with a lot of efficiencies and a lot of savings, and that's why I acknowledged our staff here earlier this morning. So when we went to same-day collection, some of you may remember where we actually picked up your garbage on one day and your recycling on a separate day. So we went to same-day collection, and so that saved us $1.5 million. We also converted our trucks that I mentioned, those 433 trucks. We converted the majority of those to CNG, and we also recently received a $1 million grant so we can convert the remaining trucks to CNG. That saved us $1.3 million. Our closed landfills, they're not just sitting there, we're actually repurposing those, and we have landfill leases on our closed landfills, and so that brings in $2.6 million. And for example, like we have farming on some of these properties, or telemarketing companies actually have some their cellular devices on the landfills as well. So that's how we're utilizing that. We also have a partnership with APS where we have a solar project on one of our landfills. So that's how we're using the landfill leases to bring in additional revenue. We do equipment rebuild. So as opposed to going out and buying new equipment, new Caterpillar equipment to use at our transfer stations and our landfills, we're actually rebuilding them, and that saves us $1.3 million as well. And then we're right-sizing our fleet. So in the past, maybe we needed larger equipment, and so now we're able to downsize the equipment, and that brought additional savings, $1.1 million. So in addition to the solid waste residential fee, if you are one of our customers where you take your material, your solid waste directly to our transfer station, we aren't charging for, well, we charge $38.25 for that service, but we have not increased that rate in the last 10 years as well. So we wanted to look at how can we increase our revenue, so it's just not on the backs of our rate payers, right? Our residents and customers. So we looked at how can we build in additional revenue. So we have agreements with other cities and organizations where they bring their recyclables to us. So we're now charging for that that service. So that will bring in another additional $1 million in revenue. We have private operators that pick up garbage and collect recyclables in the city of Phoenix for multifamily and for commercial. And so we are looking to institute a permit fee for those companies. All other cities do. We don't in Phoenix. That will bring an additional $1 million in revenue. And then the gate rates that I mentioned. If you're a customer where you're coming directly to us and you're currently being charged $38.25, we want to increase that rate because we haven't done so in the last 10 years, and that would bring an additional $1 million in revenue. And then we also brought forward several reductions in our capital improvement program and the efficiencies and savings that I mentioned. So if we do not increase our rate, our solid waste fee, we would have to eliminate a lot of services that we currently provide that our customers have grown to truly appreciate. We have a projected shortfall of $36 million annually. So if we do not increase our rate, then we would eliminate our 4 bulk trash services that we do each year. We would eliminate our 9 household hazardous waste events. We would have to go to every other week recycling. We would shutter one of our 2 recycling facilities. We would eliminate all of our composting programs in our compost facility. And then we would also eliminate eco stations that we currently provide. We've heard a lot from residents who live in multifamily and they want recycling services. And so with council approval, we instituted that program, and so that would go away as well. And overall, it would be elimination of 135 positions. Okay, so what we wanted to do was to present options to our city council and options to our residents to consider when increasing the rate. So in order to maintain our current services, what we're doing today, all the services that I mentioned earlier, we would need a rate increase of $6.40, and that would bring it to $33.20. That's close to what the amount would be if we just applied normal inflation. Another option would be eliminating our composting program. Right now, not all residents are able to take advantage of that program, but we have about 10,000 customers who do. We opened our compost facility about 2 years ago, so it's a developing market, and so, but we were asked to look at an option there as well. So if we were to eliminate our composting, that would have an impact on our current diversion goal. The other option is option 3, looking at going to every other week recycling. We said, how can we keep our current services, including recycling, including composting, but help reduce our operational costs? So if we were to go to every other week recycling, similar to what they just implemented this summer in the city of Tucson, we would then need a rate increase of $5.50, which would bring it to $32.30. But all the other services would remain in place. And then option 4 looks at eliminating recycling and eliminating composting. In this case, we are sending all of our waste to the landfill. Even if we did that, we would still need a rate increase of $4.75 each month, which would bring our rate to $31.55. And in this case, our diversion goal would go away, and we would be the first largest city in the nation that would do away with our sustainability goals. But that is an option, and we want to present all options to our residents and to our council members. So here's a summary of all the options, and then also it assumes a 2% inflation factor beginning in 21-22. Councilwoman Stark actually asked us to look into an option where we would do a 2-year phase-in approach of our rate. And so in this case, you would actually have savings the first year, but overall, it would be about a 60 to a 65 cent increase over what we had presented. So in this case, you have the 2-year phase-in option. And then now I'd like to take questions. So we have handed out information cards, so it summarizes the options there. We also have green cards for you to fill out with your comments or your questions. We'd also like for you to go online and take a survey, or we have them here where you can do them as well. But if you go online, please go to phoenix.gov/trash and recycle. And there we have all of the information we presented today, plus additional information. And then we have the survey that you can take. I'd like you to know that to date, nearly 1,000 people have already gone online to give us their feedback on the services they use, the services they value, and the rate option they would prefer. And with that, I'll take questions. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Yes. So the question was how did we factor our rates? And I'm going to sit down and take the questions, and because we're going to fill them both together. It is basically based off of the majority of our customers they have the one garbage bin and the one recycling bin. And so that's what we factored our rates on. To your point, we do have other customers who have multiple bins, and so they're charged additionally for that. And then if you have the tan container, if you're in the eligible area, that's $5 on top of the rate that we're charging. $5 for the tan container for composting. But you can also go to a smaller garbage container and save $3 a month if you prefer to do that. And then I'll also pass it to Joe Jadis to add additional information.
I think that one was answered unless you have any other questions.
If China is not taking our recyclables, where are they going then?
Okay, so with respect to China and the recyclables, so for the most part, the recyclables we're talking about that used to go to China from Phoenix are our paper, our cardboard, and something called mixed plastics, a small amount of those. So most of the paper and cardboard now are going either domestically or to Southeast Asia other than China to be recycled. The mixed plastics right now do not have a market, those small amount of mixed plastics. However, Phoenix is in final contract negotiations with a company to accept those mixed plastics and build a manufacturing facility here in Phoenix to process those.
And
Yes, sir.
Sorry, if I could interrupt. If you have a question, if you don't mind, if we could have you come up to the mic stand here so we can have you heard and seen. Thank you.
I've got some oil that I've been trying to get rid of for quite a while, and they used to have a recycling of toxic materials, but I can't find it in your flyer anymore. And I'm wondering why that is, and who do I call to find out when those collection points are and where they are.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we definitely have some staff here that can tell you when the next collection event's going to be near your home. Oil has a lot of options. You can take it back often to even like an oil change place nearby. We can take it at either of our 2 transfer station facilities that are year-round.
Now it's
and then,
mixed oil and water. So
okay, and then any of our household hazardous waste collection events, we can accept your oil, and these folks can help you over here in telling you where you get that, and we'll make sure we also tell you where you can get the regularly published schedule for that.
Is there some reason that it's no longer in the flyer?
Let me add. So just to clarify, so in the past, or you may be remembering, we called our events BOPA, B-O-P-A, batteries, oil, paint, and antifreeze. And now we're calling them household hazardous waste events. And so when we say we offer the 9 household hazardous waste events, that is where we would like for you to take your oil to. So it doesn't specifically spell that out, but that's what we changed the name from BOPA to HHW, but that's the event to collect those oil and those types of items. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You said the mixed plastics don't have a home, you don't have a way, because I understand from this gentleman over here that you break up the plastics in different areas and they actually are making the city money.
Yes, so let me clarify. There's a series of different types of plastics. So your plastic water bottles, soda bottles, for example, those sell at a very good market. They're usually made into carpeting. Your milk jugs or your laundry detergent bottles, those also have a market. So these are kind of like maybe yogurt cups or some other types of smaller mixed plastics that we're currently working on a new market for. But most of the plastic, the rigid stuff you're used to, does have a market to be sold here domestically in the United States. Yes, sir. We can do that.
Hello, my name is Mark, and I live in this neighborhood. Your statistics that you provided were all, this doesn't want to stay, were all based upon growth, the number of people, number of square miles, but you didn't mention households and calculate those risks and how much money you're actually bringing in from these households. I mean, the growth has nothing, because each individual place, it's a household, and that household pays for their services. So whether we have 10,000 of those or 100,000 of those is based on the household and the income coming in. The figures you have are very, you can't make a decision based on them. And the other thing is, I've not seen any incentive from Phoenix or any other people to reduce the waste that we have. There's a tremendous amount of plastic being used, and perhaps that could be in glass, so there's no incentive, like a tax on plastic products as opposed to glass products, but your incentive to work with the community to reduce the things that are hard to get rid of. All right, that's what I have to say. But better figures would allow us to see why you need this growth, because that's a 25% increase. And I know it's over 10 years, but you've increased the number of households. Well, going to $33 and $26 is like 25%.
Yes, correct. And thank you for those comments. Was it Mark? Yes. Thank you, Mark. So thank you for that. A couple of comments with respect to your comment about the growth and the rate. It is accurate that each new home will pay, as a new subscribing customer, the $26.80. I think perhaps if I could help you understand that rate was based on what costs were 10 years ago. So our current customers and our new customers are paying $26.80 based on the expenses that we experienced 10 years ago. But because expenses have increased over the course of those 10 years and the rate has not changed, we're under recovering, and that's why we're at a point where our revenues don't pay for our expenses with respect to that.
What I'd like to add is we do, when we do our analysis, we look at several different factors. So one of the things we did take into account is the number of households, right? So we look at the actual number of units that we service. And so what our formula is for every 2,000 households, to your point, we should have one driver, one truck, right? And that's for your garbage, one driver, one truck, and then also one garbage, one driver, one truck for your recycling. So we do take households into account, and then we apply that to our current households as well as for growth as well. But at this point, we are not, the only thing that we would add would be the 2 trucks each year for growth. That's on garbage and recycling side, and then 2 drivers each year for garbage and recycling on the growth side. The rest is for our current customers. And the incentive.
Thank you for pointing that out. That's one of the things I actually asked staff to look at is curbside versus the alley pickup. We have quite a few residents that live in alleys that now want to close and go to curbside. And my understanding is it's more efficient to pick up curbside. And so I asked them to do an analysis and bring that back to us of the difference. So thank you for pointing that out, because that's been something of interest to me. Thank you.
And then, Peg, if you can hold on 1 second, to answer your question about the incentives. So in the state of Arizona, the state legislature has passed some laws that limit what cities can do with respect to things that you described. So for example, the city of Tempe contemplated banning plastic bags as a sustainability initiative, but there's a state law that prohibits that. So there are pretty significant limitations on what a city is able to do outside of the state's control. Thank you.
Hi, I'm just wondering what you're doing to increase your markets, to find new markets for recycling.
So that is a fantastic question. So there's a few things we're working on. I mentioned, so an initiative, the Phoenix Reimagine initiative kicked off in about 2013. What we're very focused on is we recognize, we look at your trash as a resource that was mined from the earth, made into materials, and has some intrinsic value in it. And rather than burying it in a landfill, how can we recover that value? And so we have a few different partnerships that we're working. I mentioned the plastics companies. So what we're trying to do is incubate new companies around materials that don't have market, as well as always developing new markets. So in the plastic and the paper space, we've got a few contacts we're working with right now on new markets. Mostly though, it's our contract operator that manages our recycling plants that is responsible for finding the markets and selling them. Republic Services is our contractor, so they're the second largest waste company waste and recycling company in the United States, so they have pretty good access to markets. The question was, are they finding any new glass markets? And so actually glass-wise, we have a local company called Strategic Materials that has a facility right here in Phoenix. It's at 19th Avenue and Jefferson, I think. That's where a lot of glass from the Phoenix metropolitan area goes, and they employ quite a number of employees there and make new product.
So all of these plastics have a home, right? Or I mean, all of these items in here on your list. So they are sold immediately. Now, if they don't have a home, what happens to them? Are they just thrown away with the regular trash? Or do you bury them somewhere else? What happens to the ones that don't have a place to go?
Thank you. Yes, all the plastics on the handout do have a home. Those are plastics number 1 and 2. And number 5, they all have a home. And if there is a type of plastic, so there are thousands of different types of plastic. We get very familiar with the label 1, 2, 3, if you ever look on the underside, and a lot of the plastic manufacturers put recycling emblems on all of them, even if it's got just a little bit of recyclable plastic in it. If they don't have a home, if they're not recyclable, if there's no market, then they go to the landfill with all the other material.
What is the cost of contamination to the recycle, and what measures are being taken to reduce contamination levels?
Okay. That's a great question, and a question that we receive as well. So right now, the cost of contamination, we actually pay, so the city owns both of our recycling plants, but they are operated by a private vendor. So they're responsible for sorting the material and then selling it on the market. We, though, also get a fee if the rejection rate is over, if there's too much contamination. So right now we're paying about $1 million annually for contamination. Now, Joe has worked with our solid waste team. We have worked with a company called the Recycling Partnership. They're a national organization, and we've implemented a program called Oops, Shine On, where we're working with our residents to reduce the contamination, and so I can have him speak about that. But that's a great question, and it's very important because it will drive down our cost. And that $1 million in processing fee, that would represent about a 25-cent savings to our residents.
It would be helpful if you told us what we
So this gentleman over here, Lucas, will absolutely be able to give you very good detail on that. What I can say is, if it's plastic water bottle, soda bottle, you know, if it's rigid kind of, and it's a container that you drink from or that contains material, then those are recyclable. Clean them out and put them in your recycling cart, not bagged, nice and dry, and they'll be recycled. If you're not sure, the best thing to do is either check. We have actually a website. We have a tool that you can describe what you're asking about, and it'll tell you whether it's recyclable in Phoenix's program if you want to do that. Otherwise, if you're not sure, just put it in your garbage bin is probably the better bet right now if you're not sure what type of plastic it is. Again, most of the things, your milk jugs, your laundry detergent bottles, clean them out, they're recyclable.
Other questions? I have a question about the dumpsters. Yeah. I project well without it, I think. But anyway, my question is on the dumpsters. So I'm kind of an old guy, been around quite a while. We used to have the old, big, heavy dumpsters. Whether difference of size doesn't really matter, but they were coated with, they probably had a petroleum-based product in it, whatever. So they were heavier, they were better made. We very rarely needed to replace them. A few of my neighbors actually still have them. I'm surprised nobody's tried to covet them, you know, steal them. So now we have these new dumpsters, which has been a host of many issues, me personally. I'm sure my face is somewhere in your department somewhere because they don't like me at the city. But what we're having problems with, every household, at least in our neighborhood, are continually having problems with the dumpsters. Ours, I would say on average, we replace 2 to 3 a year because they're broken. Not that they can't replace a lid or wheels, which is a constant problem, but they're constantly being cracked by the machines, which I assume need to be calibrated. The other issue we have with them is because they're a different type of plastic, whether they calibrate or not, when they squeeze them, only half of our load gets dumped. So people like me, with a household of several people, I have to call the city right away because I work from home, I call the city and I notify them that, hey, I didn't get the whole load. And then I get harassed by the city telling me, no, that isn't the problem. You just ran and dumped more garbage in your garbage can. And I'm saying, no, I'm not. I was right there. I couldn't catch the driver. So I'm curious, what is the cost? Have we done a cost analysis of what if we spent a little bit more money, went back to the old dumpsters? They probably cost more, but they lasted longer. You could wash them out because of whatever that coating was. You could wash them out. You didn't have to replace your dumpsters all the time because of smell and you can't get them washed out. Have we done a cost analysis of what that is? I don't know if we're the only neighborhood having that problem, but the new dumpsters are really a problem and they're not lasting. And so how much are we really saving going to a cheaper dumpster versus, you know, a more durable one?
Thank you for that. We have had problems with our garbage containers, especially the ones bought a couple of years ago. We did make a couple of changes here recently, so hopefully the newer ones are better, but I'm going to have staff get with you. I apologize for your experience. We should never be accusing you of putting excess material in or that's inappropriate, and we shouldn't be doing that. And we strive for excellent customer service, and that's disappointing for me to hear because that's not the expectation I have or most of we have with our team. So I apologize for that, and we'll get with you to make sure. But there has been some changes in the materials and the manufacturing of some of the containers. And so we continue to work on finding that best container. And truth be told, one of the challenges we do have because of the alleys is the arms that we have on our containers have to be designed to grip both the large 300-gallon alley containers as well as the smaller containers at the curb. And that's been a little bit of a challenge with some of those smaller containers and getting the good grip. So that's something we're working to remedy as well. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have another question. We have city, so waste management comes out. You know, we have waste management, we have city trucks that come out. How often are those contracts renegotiated, for example, with waste management? How often are you renegotiating with them? Because there's other providers of services as well. Do we go out to bid, and how often do you do it? I mean, are we safe to be putting all of, if City of Phoenix puts the majority of that portion of it with City of Phoenix, is that really cost effective? Are we actually getting
better rate relative to what the competition is? Or are we better to take the city and you divide it into maybe 2 sections? You have 2 competitors out there so that when you do come up for renegotiation, you have the availability to be able to integrate a new provider in there for a better service, for a better rate, because that transition, I would think, would be quite extensive in order to make that happen. Because competition is a good thing. It helps drive down cost. And
Yes.
usually you get better service because they know that, unfortunately, they are replaceable, that there's somebody else who's hungry and wants the work.
Yes, thank you. I'll take a shot at answering that, and Ginger can add if she needs to. So a couple of things. We do have a series of contracted services. Some things the city performs, some services we contract, and then we have a term we've called managed competition. So where, in particular related to the curbside collection of garbage and recycling, the city has competed against the private sector for those services. And we haven't done that in a few years, and that's been asked of us, is to take a look at that again. But when we do that, there are multiple companies that are, so it's an open competition. So it wouldn't just be Waste Management. There are multiple companies to help drive the best price.
So we are doing that even within the city services, providing their portion? Maybe where we might be more cost effective for an outside source to be picking up what the city has been currently doing. And I know that you're concerned about loss of jobs, but you really don't. It would shift the jobs possibly from the city sector over to the private sector.
So just to clarify and to add to what Joe said, so right now, the city of Phoenix, we collect all of the garbage and recycling for our single-family residents. The private haulers, such as a Waste Management or Republic Services or Premier Waste, those companies are collecting from businesses and from apartment complexes. So the city, right now, code does not allow us to provide service to multifamily or commercial, so that's done by the private sector. So right now, we do not have a contract per se with Waste Management, okay?
Probably.
Yeah.
There is probably, well, I'm not sure exactly where you are, but there is probably a commercial account nearby or a multifamily property perhaps nearby that they're servicing. If they're servicing single-family homes, then you're maybe in a county island or not in the city of Phoenix, but then you're getting our containers, so it's probably, you're probably seeing their truck because they're servicing someone else.
So what I will add is we'll get with you after this meeting, make sure we know the location, so that way we do have environmental specialists, education folks who can come out and do some enforcement. So if they are servicing an area they should not be, we can work on that as well. So we'll look into that, but as Joe said, it could be that there's a business nearby or it's a county island or something, but we'll come in and take a look at that. And then in regards to managed competition, that is something else that we've been asked to look into. That started in the city of Phoenix, and so we're currently researching that, looking at bidding out certain parts of the city, but that will take us time to do, but it is something that we are exploring at this time. So thank you for that question. Yes, sir. We can hear you, but the thing is they're recording this session, and so they would like to get all comments.
I know you guys, I get excellent service. Your people are great. The services they provide are great. If I have problems, if I need enforcement, they come. And I believe personally that if we abandon the recycling programs and the compost programs and the hazardous waste programs, that's a big loss. So myself, $6 more a month, I guess I had to pay it, but I'm hoping you guys do the best of controlling costs. But if whatever increase you need to do the job right, I'm for keeping recycling, composting, and hazardous waste. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I agree with him on that. It would be a huge step backwards for us to do anything different in the city of Phoenix. I'm thinking that your education and outreach program is lacking a bit, because I do a lot of recycling presentations and people just seem to be amazed of what they can and cannot take and what they can do in their recycling bin and that what they bag. And I mean, it just, they always seem to be shocked. So what you're doing for outreach is not reaching the right people. It's not getting done. And then I also think your education of your own employees is an issue as well with respect to the recycling bins and the trash bins that you give to the residential customers. I live in the Moon Valley area. The guy who comes through our neighborhood, I don't know if you have them on a strict timeline and they have to hit so many houses. He throws those bins, picks them up and throws them, and they're all laying down. Some days when he comes through there, you'll find 15 houses in a row with them laying on the ground with their lids. And so it seems to be that there needs to be some education of your own staff too, because you're causing some of your own problems. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those points. And I would like to point out that right now, from an education and enforcement standpoint, you are correct. We could definitely be doing more. We currently have a team of 6 that are responsible for doing education and outreach throughout the valley. So that is to our 400,000 customers, you know, our 1.6 million residents. And so they are presenting at schools, to businesses, at community meetings, but to your point, we can do more. And then also with the Oops Shine On program that I mentioned yesterday, where we're actually going in and kind of taking a look inside the bin to say, oh wait, you recycled all the right materials, but you put it in a plastic bag, so now it's contamination. So oops, you know, don't bag your recyclables. So we have a temporary team that's also assisting us with that. And then also, when you see that happen, we want to know about it. We have technology, so we know which driver is on which route, the time that they were there, when they picked it up, missed it, and that sort of thing. And so as Joe said today, we pride ourselves on providing great quality customer service. And so when we hear things like that, we want to take care of it and get it taken care of immediately. And so to your point though, too, we do need to also train our staff. It's probably been a year or 2 since we've done that, so we'll also focus on that as well. But we have a great team, but it's a small team, and we need to do more. But we are partnering with other organizations. We work with Keep Phoenix Beautiful. They help us do education in schools, and then we're also working with businesses through a Green Business Leaders program as well. So, but we need to do more. I hear you.
Okay, I had thought of something else I'm curious about. Can you tell me, you said you can't ban like plastic bags, right? What about, can you request them being made a certain way? Like I understand there's ways to make biodegradable bags, and the same with straws. A lot of people are all upset about straws. So are there ways you can request, even though we don't ban them, to make them in a certain material that won't affect the environment so much?
Yeah, that's a great comment and question. The city of Phoenix, although we are the 5th largest city in the country, probably just does not have enough influence with manufacturers. But when states like the state of California have policy decisions like that, because they are they're like an economy larger than most countries, those start to have impacts on what manufacturers do. So what I can tell you we are doing is we talk to the supply chain, the companies who are making these products, and we tell them about what's challenging when they put a new material into the marketplace and whether it can be captured and recycled. I'll give you an example. We've been talking with Keurig Dr. Pepper here recently because they are, you know, in a little bit of hot water over their cups. People want them to be recyclable, and they haven't been. And so we've been trying to assist them in designing it in such a way that it can be captured and recycled. So we do try to participate where we can, and where we legally have the authority to take steps.
I understand that Coca-Cola just developed a new way to sell their product, which is a lot more environmentally friendly. Is there ways we can encourage other companies to do the same?
Yeah, again, another great comment, and that's where I'm really excited that Phoenix, unlike many cities, we are working with those kinds of companies like Coca-Cola, either through organizations like Keep America Beautiful, or just ourselves through some of the relationships that we have developed over the years to work with those companies, both to see if we can secure grants to do things here in Phoenix, but also to encourage and influence them on the things that our citizens care about. So thank you.
What is the life of your landfill? How much time is left on your landfill? And did the city cause some of their own problems by citing their landfills so far? Transportation costs obviously have driven up your costs, wear and tear on your vehicles because you're having to go out 60 miles to dump the loads where before it was much closer to the town. So I don't know how much life you have left in your landfill, if you'd please tell me that, but then would you think of citing a landfill much closer in the future?
So a couple of things. The landfill, to your first point, this landfill opened in 2006. It has probably 100 years of life. It's probably got maybe 35 or 40 years of permitted capacity, but there's additional land available for future permitting. So it's got lots of life left in it. That was one of the things that the Phoenix leaders wanted to make sure they secured for long-range planning, so a lot of credit to them. We did attempt, when we were citing that landfill, we looked at multiple locations that would reduce our transportation expenses. So you are right to point out that our transportation expenses have increased significantly since the citing of that landfill. I think it's about $12 or $13 million a year to transport material to the landfill, and those costs go up each year. So you are right to point that out. And transportation is a big expense when you talk about a solid waste utility, because it is our trucks that are like our pipelines, right? That is how we provide our service to customers. But we did attempt to cite the landfill here more close by, and that was rejected by the citizens outright. So we landed where we could get approval.
I've never seen the statistics, but when they speak about, or when you talk about some of the cities, I think California may be one of them, I know Michigan is another, where you purchase bottles, water bottles, soda bottles and whatnot, they have a deposit on those bottles. Yeah, how does that translate? I mean, obviously ours is voluntary, but in those cities that utilize those types of programs, what's the rate of return and how much does it help reduce the amount going into the landfill, so to speak, because you're taking them to collection facilities that are kind of really weeding through it right at the get-go? And because some people just don't want to recycle, which is fine, you find there's a whole market of people who are willing to do dumpster diving or whatever. I'm not opposed to that, but you just find that people are more apt to stop and pick things up and return. What's the rate of return on that versus what we're doing, or is that something that would be viable to look at? You know, I don't know all the ins and outs, so I'm just kind of throwing that question out.
That's another great question. You guys are loaded with great questions. So those are statewide initiatives typically. So state of California, state of Michigan, state of New York. There's several others that have bottle redemption laws. That's typically aluminum containers, although there's some that have plastic as well, PET. So your water bottles or soda bottles. And they typically get good returns and less contamination on those particular containers in states that have those laws in place. The cities don't typically benefit from that. As a matter of fact, they probably lose a little bit because the redemptions are going back to stores within. So a city-run program like ours, where the sale of aluminum helps us fund some of our programs, you know, that aluminum probably wouldn't be coming back through the city program. But they are really good recovery programs for the states that have those in place.
I was just wondering, though, relative to just kind of looking at the bigger picture, because right now we have to take them to transfer stations and then we have to pay people to weed through, and then we have the fallout and what we pay for the contamination, and then we have the landfill issue because of the contamination. At the end of the day, do we is it kind of a wash in that you're getting them to the end destination and we're reducing our landfill, and the folks that are at the transfer station can then better weed through, and we can narrow down how much our landfills are taking. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's kind of a wash in the bigger picture. As a country, we begin to move, and they're going to probably start implementing fees for cities that aren't meeting those goals. It may be an offset for the bigger picture if they start saying, hey, you only met 36% of your goal or whatnot. Is that something we look at for long term? You know, just because we're going to get hit with fees and whatnot on the back end side.
Yeah, we can absolutely research that and have a conversation with the state of Arizona about those types of programs, whether the state's interested in some type of a bottle redemption bill.
If you have to put these recyclables in the landfill, since we've gone through all the trouble of sorting them out, do you have areas where you put plastics so if the market opens up, you can go get these sorted out plastics and not mixed with baby diapers?
Yeah, so I should be really clear with everybody. When I talked about those mixed plastics that don't have a market, they're a very small portion of what is in the recycling carts. Most of the plastics that are in the recycling carts are in fact your water bottles and your soda bottles and your milk jugs, and those are being captured and recovered. There is not a way to separate those kinds of materials well, without just taking them through the sorting process essentially and baling them and handling them separately for future recovery. But we're not currently doing that, certainly, and there's not enough probably volume to do that. If I could encourage everyone, the biggest difference you could make in your recycling cart is just making sure you're putting the right things in there and you're not putting plastic bags or bagging your recyclables. If you could do that, you'd go a long way to helping us out, or helping out all of us.
All righty.
Sorry, one last thing. Talking about the recyclables, getting back to the garbage can, if I may. If there's any way in the future, whether we stick with the same garbage cans or not, if they create some weight to the lids on these things, because again, another reason why the city doesn't like me is when we go through these windy periods of time, those lids blow open. And my neighbors who are very good at recycling, the recyclables blow all over the frickin' neighborhood and the dumpsters fall over. So what we've had problems with is then, because I work from home, I go and collect all the garbage, but when the wind keeps blowing and blowing all the garbage out, on several occasions it's been so bad, I have to put them in a bag to keep them on top because everybody's garbage is full, and I tuck them in, and then I get the city showing up at me, harassing me when I'm just trying to prevent the garbage. I'm like, look, I get it, but it's windy and all the we have to stop the wind, you know. So again, kind of getting back to our dumpster thing, if they could create a dumpster with a little more weight to it, it would prevent a lot of fallout garbage all over, because we have that happen a lot. I don't know if we're just in a windy part or whatnot, but it would be very helpful.
So we apologize for the lack of service that you've been receiving. We'll follow up with you right after this meeting, and we will work on that, and we'll continue to research our containers, the lids, the wheels, all of that, the quality of the containers, so we'll definitely do that. I want to thank everyone for coming out today, and actually what I want to say to your point is our boss right now, we're the Public Works Department. We report to the city manager, who reports to mayor and council, but ultimately who's at the top of that is all of you. It's our residents. So you are our boss at the end of the day, and it is our goal to provide the best quality service, to be as efficient as we can, to be as effective as we can at the lowest price as well. So that is our goal ultimately. So I want to thank all of you for coming out today. I want to remind everyone to please go to phoenix.gov/trash and recycle, or to take the survey online, or to take it here today. And what I'd like to do is actually turn it over to our councilman, Deborah Stark, to close us out with comments. And thank you again.
Thank you. I think we got a lot of great comments today and some research we need to do. I especially thought the educational component is very thoughtful, and we probably need to look at doing a better job of that. I've been lectured by my daughter about cleaning out my plastics. So, I mean, it is something that we have to be reminded of from time to time. But I do appreciate each and every one of you coming out. You have very good comments. And again, please fill out the survey. We need to know how you feel about the rates and the different options. Thanks again for being here. I think we're going to stick around a little bit just in case you have any further questions. Thanks.